Alrighty, so we're going to do our follow-up on Belle. And let me share the screen. How many days has it been since you did the first video to this video?
When did I do this video? This was the 28th, I think. I think it's been a week. And of course, I haven't ridden her since.
So is this you implementing what we talked about last
Yes.
time?
Yes.
Okay. So you haven't had a chance to practice that, but this is you
This is
implementing it.
the first try to see what was working, because we kind of talked about two strategies of
Yes, I think we talked about leave it alone, add leg as she starts to lengthen her neck, or put her on a little bit of a turn with or without a neck bend in order to
yeah,
keep her more stable on her hind end.
yeah.
Okay. So what strategy did you end up starting with?
Well, for starters, we stayed in the camera a lot more, so
Yes,
that's
so
gonna
good.
help.
That'll help.
Um, yeah, so I kind of played between the gentle bending and then a little bit of leg. And I think the gentle bending was working pretty well with her. Like, not quite the same as Tally, but sort of following where she was going and then asking for just a little bit more.
So kind of going with the direction you felt she was going, but putting
Yeah.
in a little more of a turn.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're looking for, like right away, she's really feeling stable enough that she attempts to really lengthen the neck. And what we're looking for her progress is that she can hold that lengthening of the neck longer. She's going to be on the forehand, she's going to be in long and low, but either the turns with or like you're going to have to use the rein for steering. She's not stable or balanced enough to steer from the saddle yet, but if you use the inside rein for the turn and you need to bend the neck a little in order to get the turn, that would be fine.
Yeah.
If you can make the turn with the inside rein and it doesn't create a bend through the neck, fine. It's the turning that's just going to help her keep her hind legs a little more underneath her and a little bit more stable. So what I'm looking at as this plays, and it's about a 30-minute video, so I may jump around in it. But already she's holding that length through her neck for 2, 3 strides instead of just
Yeah.
one stride.
Yeah.
And she slowed down a little bit, but did you feel like you had to add leg to keep her going, or is this just her choosing her speed and not trying to stop?
This is mostly her choosing her speed. Before we started, um, the farrier was hot shoeing in the barn, and
Hmm.
when we came into the arena and came down like to this end, it smelled real strong, and she actually got kind of nervous, which she hasn't done in a long time. And so I took a little extra time to walk her on the ground, and then she kind of made a beeline down there for the other end of the arena. So I'm really glad I changed the camera angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she actually kind of came out and was a little nervous and had a little extra energy. So some of the first, like that first couple, like minute or so in that corner, she was actually kind of worried. So I was actually asking for bends, like, hey, no, you cannot have your head way up in the air like that.
Hmm.
But now she's settled down, and I'm not really asking for a whole lot of leg at this point. It's
Okay.
mostly just playing with turning.
I really like this. So letting her choose her speed. And of course, you're going to ask her to turn from the saddle, but I just wouldn't expect that she could follow just the seat yet for the steering, that you'll need the inside rein. And if she gets unstable, you may need the inside rein to the point of bending her neck, but mostly it's a little bit far away, but mostly it looks like you're not really bending the neck. It looks like her neck is pretty straight as you're turning, and she's still lengthening anyways. And like there,
Yeah.
okay, she gets distracted. Yeah. So if she gets worried or distracted, then obviously take a little bit more bend on the turn and get her to refocus on you. But I'm already seeing more consistency in what are we in the first 5 minutes than what you had by the end of the ride last time.
Yeah.
So I would say the turns and your turns, your steering doesn't have to be like for Tally, when we looked at her, your path of travel should sort of be a sidewalk width or horse width because she needs the path of travel to help you feel how rapidly to help her get stable.
Yeah.
And she's wiggly sort of head to tail. With Belle, any degree of turn will help with her just sort of learning to stabilize more and more with a minimal amount of engagement. And as soon as she puts her head up like that, yeah, there you take a little more bend. And I wouldn't be shy about that if it's a distraction or a nervousness, just take more rein and make the turn a little tighter until her attention gets back on you. When her attention is on you, then you can try more and more with a straight neck on the turn. And it looks like she's just starting to, she eats grass, of course, that she's starting to give you 3, maybe 4 strides before she starts to shorten up her neck again. And that's a really good start. You know, we're into 6.5 minutes. So it's like that's a really good start for her warm up.
I was pleased with how well she was doing. I was bending her neck, but not, she wasn't sort of collapsing when I would ask for the bend. She was still maintaining some straightness, and that was helping her put her head down.
Yes. And when we kind of watch her go away, again, it's a little bit far away, but let me just back up to where she's walking away from the camera. Where is it? Of course, I can't find it when I need it.
Should be pretty close in there. Yeah. Or is that the other turn?
Now it's the other turn. Let me go forward. But let me see if I can find a place where she's walking away from the camera because the concern I had with the bending of the neck was sort of the oblique placement of the hind leg in adduction. But you're not taking so much bend because when you bend the neck, especially an incorrect lateral bend, like there you can kind of see her hind legs,
Yeah.
right? So any place where we can get a straight view from the back or a straight view from the front, we'll kind of pause there and look at the legs. What we don't want to see is more angular loading of the legs. You want to see them getting straighter and more square. But even when you're bending her, I'm not seeing her like there. If we just look at the hind legs, she's not crossing the other hind leg.
Yeah.
She's moving towards the midline, like especially the tighter the turn. But that's why you don't need to be accurate on your path of travel. Any amount of turn will do. And if she doesn't quite turn easily, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't take more bend to get the turn because what
Okay.
you're trying to do is stay away from, well, we want light adduction because we want more engagement and more forward placement of the hind legs. You don't want to do it through the bending of the neck, which is going to cause the hind leg to land more at an angle with the load to the lateral side of the hoof.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really want to encourage engagement, but when you play with neck bend, you're in that slippery area between disengaging and engaging because you're adducting. So
Yeah.
technically, once a hind leg crosses the midline of the horse in adduction, you've gone from engagement to disengagement.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the straighter she is on the turn, the more likely she's going to load the leg straight and she will lightly adduct, but we won't really see it. It won't be so obvious that the leg is loading at an angle or that she's even coming towards the midline in a visually obvious way.
Yeah.
You still get the same benefit of adduction. It's just that when it's ideal, we don't see it. We don't see the angular placement of the leg. But yeah, so a lot more as you kind of stay back and forth on this easy figure eight. There's a lot more of her. There's more moments of her lengthening and shortening, which is what we
Yeah.
looked at last time. And this is only your first ride since the last video.
Yes.
Okay, so that tells us this strategy goes in the to-do box. This strategy stays.
Yeah.
And then I'm
Towards the
at
end, I started playing a little more with asking for
a
not even
little
really speed, but when she had her head down, just ask
more
just a
push.
little bit more push. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Because
but
we're
it's
at about 13 minutes. So let me
yeah,
jump forward. If it was, I was going to ask you if it was towards the end of the ride. So I'm going to
yeah.
jump forward to the 20-minute mark.
And it's possibly not even super visually, kind of like the adduction of the leg. Like,
Well, what we should see, whether or not I can see you give the leg aid, what we should see now, jumping forward to 20 minutes, is if you have not added the leg, we should see more consistency of her moving with her neck lengthening. If you add the leg, what you're looking for is that you get more steps forward with the neck in length. The way she used to react to the leg aid is instantly shortening the neck and
back up.
pushing back.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little tricky for her. It may be helpful and it may actually work against what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, see on these turns, she's keeping the hind legs straighter and wider. The turn is helping her keep the hind leg just barely under her enough that she can stop the holding through her neck.
Yeah.
There, when she goes that high with her neck, I would bend. I would take the bend and say, enough already.
Yeah.
And then as like at the 20-minute mark, you might have thought to add leg around here because she's going even slower.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the slow speed. Sometimes they have to literally go one step at a time to figure out how to let go of the front end and trust the back end as the source of stability.
Yeah. I think we got a bit distracted in here. I think he
Hmm.
was moving the tractor around.
And that's okay. Like, the higher the head, the more you can just bend the neck and if nothing else, get their attention back on you.
Yeah.
And then as soon as their attention is back on you and they begin lengthening the neck, you can just put it straight again. Yeah, you definitely need leg. So between sort of we're at 22 minutes, and I would say
Yeah.
you need leg just to keep her forward enough. Because what they'll do, and this is a little bit what she's doing with the stopping, is she doesn't quite feel secure in that transition of letting go of her neck and trusting her own hindquarters.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a leg aid to increase speed. It's a leg aid to kind of keep the hind end in motion. And
Yeah.
that's how they're going to learn to trust it. And the fact that she's like slowed her speed and is halting, she's seeking the stability instead of through pushing and braking, which is what she would find it with. She's taking her foot off the gas pedal. She's
Yeah.
going, okay, I'm unstable. Let me reduce the pushing so much that I don't really have to work with my hindquarter or my back, and I'm stable because I'm so slow or I'm at halt.
Yeah.
And she's halted now at this a couple of times. And I wouldn't say that's fatigue. I would say it's more avoidance that
Okay.
she's not quite figuring out
Mm-hmm.
how to keep going forward. The more she's letting go of that muscle tension, the more they go, well, I'm not quite sure how to move
Yeah.
like this. And she's, lengthening the neck at halt, but then she goes, I'm not, she's not putting the next piece in place. And that's where your leg aid says pushing is the next piece you need, Belle.
Okay.
Doesn't have to necessarily increase speed, but it has to increase pushing force
Yeah.
because there's nothing to manage. Like there is no braking and there is no resistance to the weight falling forward if there is no push.
Yeah.
So the horses figure that out.
Yeah.
And they go, let me just take my foot off the gas pedal and quit pushing, which is going to be a very slow speed or a halt in order to not have to use the back muscles and not have to control their body weight when their neck is lengthening and they're no longer contracting.
Yeah.
So I would say just looking at what she's doing, you definitely, if you haven't already added leg, I would say you need the leg aid and the turns. I would do both.
Okay.
And if you want to use the leg aid very early in the ride, it didn't look bad when she was fresh and she was choosing her own speed. But now at the 20-minute mark, she's reducing the push. She's not
Yeah.
increasing the braking force, which is what we actually want, because the braking force is a resistance to the current acceleration. That's how they prevent the weight falling forward. And that would be the back and hindquarter muscles taking over the job of what she's been doing with her neck,
Yeah.
right? But instead of figuring that out, she goes, let me just stop pushing.
Yeah.
So if you need to carry a riding whip, I would carry a riding whip so you don't destabilize your seat. But the second she lengthens her neck and halts, you're trying to teach her in that moment, push from the hind legs and go forward. So the longer you let her
Yeah.
sit here at halt, the worse it's going to get. She's not going to put that together.
Well,
So
the
I
old man
wouldn't,
came over and started talking, so that's what we're doing right now.
oh, okay. I
Yeah.
would not let her
Yeah.
rest at halt. I would start trying to put that together. So let me see. We're at 26 minutes. I think you're still talking. Okay,
Yeah.
there we have some movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the leg aid, which is just it's stimulating the horse's pushing mechanism, which is back muscle use as well as hindquarter use, as well as leg placement. There's a pushing phase to the leg stride, and there's a
Hmm.
pushing use of the back and the hindquarter muscles. So by her reducing the push, instead of using the muscles she needs to learn how to use to stabilize without shortening her neck, she's lengthening her neck quite a bit in this ride, but she goes, okay, now what? I'm just
Yeah.
going to quit pushing. And
Okay.
that's really the answer. So I would say, even early in the ride, as soon as she starts lengthening her neck, your leg aid is just to say, keep the same speed. You're not
Yeah.
using your leg aid to increase speed necessarily,
Yeah.
but to tell her, don't quit pushing. That's what your
Yeah.
leg aid is primarily going to do to help her make that connection between lengthening the neck and um, staying in motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's really reduced the speed by the end of the ride, and she's not keeping the neck long. So that's sort of her saying, I don't quite feel stable, or I'm not quite figuring out that sort of transition of stability from the front end to the hind end.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely keep her on turns of some sort. They can be random turns, it can be a figure eight, it can be a big circle, but the turns of some sort definitely gave you more strides with her neck releasing and lengthening.
Yeah.
And then if you add the leg aid maybe earlier in the ride, that might help her figure out, oh, as I let go of my neck, if I keep pushing, I can find my stability through my back and hindquarters.
Yeah.
Like right there, she kind of gets it. And
Yeah.
she, yeah, and see, then she wants to stop. So there you must have added leg because she kept
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
That's when we get a little
And
lurchy.
she, like, she's just teetering there, trying
Yeah.
to put it together. And allowing her to come to halt is not useful to her in this
This,
particular moment.
yeah.
It's useful at different times, But as they're trying to figure out, I let go of the neck and I push more, right? And they're going to balance the pushing and the braking to prevent the body weight from going forward. But she's more keen on the turn to let go through the neck, which tells you you have more stability behind. And then she goes, but now what? I'm just going to quit pushing.
Yeah.
So I would be like leg, 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 leg. And in
Okay.
order to not get too hard with your legs, you might carry a whip. And
Yeah.
just as she's lengthening with her neck, a very light touch with the whip on the hindquarter would be perfect for helping her figure out how to
Yeah.
move without having to go back and shortening that neck.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll play with that next week. I think the farrier is coming next Friday, so I probably won't go out and ride until Friday.
Okay. And let
Um,
me know how she does with picking up
yeah.
her hind feet.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. So let me stop. Let's stop there because that's Belle. And then where'd my record? Okay.